I was a terrible boss. Seriously, if you guys are watching, if you're a business owner, a clinic owner, if you're a manager, this is going to be so relatable and hopefully one of the most valuable videos you watch this year. Because here is the thing, we can have a very successful clinic, we can have a very successful team, but what if things are brewing in the background that you're just not aware of? And that was me as a boss a few years ago. And if you stay until the end, I want to share with you 3 hacks and strategies that I found the hard way. There was no books that I can read this stuff from. It was discovered through trial and error. And I wish someone taught me these 3 skills as a leader that will just get you to the next level of being able to build a team from. For us, it's been amazing. We've had a team of like 15, 16 full-time people with us. Everyone seems happy and we have a work environment of transparency. And I do private work now where I help clinic owners to build teams, to build a truly successful business that can work with or without them. And one of the challenges we find people really face in the space of chiropractic in our case is they don't have the capacity and the skill set to know what a successful leader looks like, which is where we come in. So my initial program was all about how to get more new patients. Then we went to how to convert higher. We built those programs into our platform and they're still there. But what I found was when clinics were getting more and more successful, it was all about people and managing people and becoming a better leader. So if you have the audacity to say you're a terrible boss because you don't know what a good, successful boss looks like, then I promise you this video will bring a ton of value. And there are 3 hacks that I want to share with you that I learned along the way. The first one is a framework that I stole from people in other industries that works extremely well because it's based on psychology and is based on what people behave like. And that is the framework of how to have, we call it the framework, how to have difficult conversations, difficult conversations. How do we have difficult conversations? This is one of the biggest challenges for inexperienced business owners. They're just used to dealing with patients, getting people better, which is phenomenal. They open a business and they realize the only way I can scale after a certain point is to start building my team. But with building a team comes great responsibility. And one of the biggest frameworks I can teach you is this. And it consists of 3 points because there will be multiple times where you have to have uncomfortable and challenging conversations with your team. But guess what's more difficult? If you don't have those conversations, it becomes messy. People start to do whatever they want to, and as a result, you don't have a business, you have a thing that you work underneath, and it feels like you're going to your own house and it feels uncomfortable. You've got these crazy people at your place that don't have any structure, don't have any process in place. So therefore, this framework will save you so many headaches. And I want you to comment below if this is something you actually put in place, because after watching this video, I promise you, it will reduce your headaches by tenfold. But also, more importantly, it will make you a more effective leader that can build a team that helps lots of patients. Because ultimately, if you're not a good leader, you're not managing people, and if you're not managing and leading people and inspiring them, they're not going to be able to provide the service that you want them to provide to your community, and it's almost always the patient suffers. So let's reverse engineer and say, how can I, as the business owner, the founder, build my skill set to be able to provide the best thing I can for my team? And it goes like this. Let's assume, what's a good example? Let's assume that you have an associate and they never ever do their notes. We know clinically, medically, legally, you're required to have your clinical notes in place. But let's say you hire your first associate, or let's say that you have a manager that is struggling to deal with 3 or 4 associates they have, and their note, or one of them never does their notes. By the way, that's a big problem in our profession. Don't ask me why. We went to and we're very good at doing this now, but we went to the extent of building a feature within our software to make sure that it pings when there's no notes and it stays in your face. So it's obvious, not just for the practitioner, but for the whole team. And therefore, we're very, very good at doing that now. But let's say you have to have this uncomfortable conversation with an associate. It goes like this. The first part of the framework of handling difficult conversations has to be that you have to tell them what the conversation is all about. What do you actually want to talk about? Stop being wishy-washy. Stop beating around the bush. I want to talk about X. Hi, John. Today, I want to talk about the fact that there's been lots and lots of notes missing. in your diary. And by the way, say with certainty, this is your business, these clients that you truly care about. And if the conversation is difficult, it means that it's valuable to have. It means that it has a lot of importance. So don't avoid those things. This is how you have problems later on down the line. Nip it in the bud when the problem is occurring, not after 6 months of it becoming an issue. John, I want to have a discussion with you today about some of your note-taking because I've noticed there's been a lot of incomplete files and it's really important for us to deal with it. The second part of the framework is tell them how you want the conversation to end. This shows leadership, it shows that you're serious about this, and it shows the importance of the conversation you want to have with them. I want, and then you say the outcome. And this may sound like this. By the end of this conversation, John, I want us to make sure that this never happens again. And if you need any support and help from us, please let us know. So that's really important because they need to feel supported. And the third thing is, we call it the invincible contract. This is where you get them to buy into the conversation or the frame of the conversation before you start having the conversation. And that the simplest way I found this works is sound fair? Question mark. Does that sound okay? Is that fair enough? Sound good? These are all very simple, invincible contracts that they say yes to. Therefore, they're in agreement with you that this conversation is about to happen and this is the outcome that we want. Therefore, don't argue with me back and forth that the notes should or shouldn't be done or I didn't have time. It's so important to use this framework and substitute the X, which is the current problem we're trying to talk about, with any challenges that you might have in your team, in your business, or things you want them to improve on. So this, guys, I cannot describe to you how much of an effective leader would that make you by just having a framework. And it's just like when you started as a new associate and you were saying to yourself, oh my goodness, how am I going to make a good new patient consultation super effective? How am I going to get this person on the care plan? How am I going to get them to feel better? How am I going to prevent this from happening? How am I going to take payment? How am I going to create a schedule? Well, having a framework, breaking it down, day 1, day 2, and so on and so forth. This applies in exactly the same way. It's just now you're managing your team and you're managing people. So frameworks will really help you. And it's not about you, it's about helping them, right? So having this framework will help massively. This is point number 1. Point number 2, hack number 2 is what I call the 3-to-1 rule when it comes to management. This is how you build, this is super important, super cool, and I'm going to get excited. This is how you build a problem-solving culture, not a problem-orientated culture. I work with many people, and here in the UK, we can be quite pessimistic, quite negative, if you like, which is okay, but not when you run a business and when you're trying to help people with their health, their physical, mental well-being. So imagine if you have patients who are coming and there's problems and my back hurts and and all your associates are doing the same thing. They're just focusing on the problem. And then they bring all that to your manager and your manager brings that to you, or even worse, you're the manager, you don't have a practice manager and everyone is just offloading their problems to you. That literally was just keeping me awake for months and months after I started my business because I didn't have these tools. No one taught me this stuff. I had to invest in masterminds and private coaching and learn by myself and build a team and learn from my mistakes and lose team members. And I put my hand up to say, I'm still learning a huge amount, but I can at least constrict some of the most effective techniques and tools that have worked for me to build a 7-figure business. And now we teach people from all over the world to do the same. And this is what the 3-to-1 rule looks like when it comes to problem solving. It's probably actually one of my favorite leadership hacks. And this is when people would come to you, by the way, with problems. Stefan, can you fix the X-ray machine? Stefan, can you order us this? Stefan, no one comes to me anymore. Why? Because we have frames like this. So obviously I teach my manager to do that, but if you don't have a manager, this applies to you as a business owner. When someone comes to you and they have an X problem, okay? The X is the problem. The problem could be anything from whatever it is. Note-taking, we don't have enough head roll. Oh, Stefan, I have lots of people cancelling their appointments. People are not showing up. I'll say to them, hey, associate X, what 3 things can potentially solve that X problem? Give me 3 potential solutions, okay? Let's say they come in my office and we literally have this conversation. And they might say, okay, if we've got too many cancellations, I might emphasize the importance of sticking to a plan throughout the plan, okay? I might say, well, you just need to show up. Okay, that's fine. Let's just put it as an idea. And I might say, let's just have all your appointments pre-booked for the next 6 weeks. Great, okay. So let's say these are your 3 solutions. The number 2 will stand for, will give me the 2 best solutions out of those 3 that you've given me. And they might say, well, they just need to show up and they just need to know. Okay, well, that's probably not the best one. So it's okay to sometimes give them feedback throughout this process, and you'll see why in a minute. But you might say, I probably wouldn't say that's the patient associate X, but what you said about the pre-booking, great suggestion. Speak to the CAs, make sure that all your patients have pre-booked appointments for the next few weeks, and make sure the reminders are working. And what was the other thing you said? And then they might say, oh, and I just need to have more conversations around the bench when we treat them about the importance of sticking to a plan in order to get better results faster. Brilliant. Okay, so this is called table talk. Now, let's assume you have CAs, and these are the 2 solutions they've come up with. Really important as a leader to ask questions. People usually have the answer. They just run on this default lack of thinking, right? Especially with technology now, especially when you have a team, people do stuff for you. So get them to think for themselves. Create autonomy and problem-solving culture within the team. So what I might say to them is I say, okay, let's say the associate's name is Lisa. Okay, Lisa, out of these 2, the pre-bookings and the table talk, which one do you think, what's the number 1 thing do you think will make the biggest difference to this X problem you're trying to solve? And this is the magic, and why? And Lisa might say, I just need to get them to pre-book. And I might say, okay, why is that important? Why do you think that's more important than table talk? And she might say, oh, well, because they're going to get SMS reminders, therefore they're going to be on the system, and therefore they're less likely to miss appointments. And I might challenge her. This is where education comes. I might say, great, okay, but what if the pre-booking technically can be offloaded to the CAs or the app we have, and we do that on day 1? If they don't understand why they need to keep coming back, do you think it's more important for them to actually understand the reasoning? And I might give them an example such as, why do you brush your teeth every day? Do you get an SMS reminder to brush your teeth? And then I go, are you pre-booked for your toothbrush to be sitting there in front of you in the mirror every morning? And I want them to understand basically that the most important point from the problem they're trying to solve is typically that they have control of what the patient does, because they are the person who educates the patient about their health, their well-being, and preventative care, and so on. So this is where we give them the tools. But what we did is we established a framework of going from there's a big problem here, it's really messy, to then actually let's think about some solutions. What are the best ones, and which one are we going with, and why? Which one are we going with, and most importantly, why are you going with that one? Because this gives you a window of opportunity to educate your team about things that you know. Typically, as harsh as it sounds, the business owner knows most stuff about most things in their business. That's why you are the business owner. So you started from being the chiropractor, you started from being the manager, you started from being the cleaner, you started from taking money, you started to be doing CA stuff. So you know a lot about a lot. Be a leader by getting them to find out the answer themselves, and give them any support tools that they might need. And this one hack, the 3-to-1 rule, the 3-to-1 tool, will absolutely skyrocket your culture in terms of it going from just focusing on the problem to focusing on solutions. You do that for 3 to 6 months, and you'll realize that people will come up with solutions themselves way before they present to you, and they will only present you with some of the biggest challenges that they cannot come up with solutions themselves. That's how big organizations work. That's how big companies work. That's how we solve big problems in the world. And if someone is not capable of doing that, then it's, again, maybe a hiring problem. And the third and final, it's not really a hack, but I think this is very important to emphasize, is just love your team. And I don't mean fluffy, like feel good thing, feel like inspired and hug each other. I mean genuinely care about your people. You've got to. I have this framework, and I think to myself, they're all family. Know their goals, know their desires, know what they like, what they don't like, know their struggles, cry with them if you need to, celebrate with them when you have to. But people don't leave jobs. People leave leaders. I've made this mistake the first time I tried to step away from my business, and it really hurt. And I had to swallow my ego and get feedback from people that left the team, and I really wanted to understand why. And they just said, Stefan, you just never felt like you were present anymore. And that, without getting too transparent on YouTube, that was really painful to hear, but it was probably one of the biggest feedback points I had, because the first thing I did is I set up an office in my own clinic to be present, to be here, to know what my teams need, what they want, and how I can support them, and just truly, really treat them like family. So yes, it's a simple hack, but the one thing I appreciate now is you don't work with numbers, you don't work with staff. This is a team. And if I'm the coach, I need to understand that the desires, the pain points, the life dreams of my staff and my team and just everyone around us, that helps us to go towards that one vision, which is helping people with their health. So sounds fluffy, but love them. Truly love your team. And guys, I promise you, if I was to summarize these 3 points, is just make sure you have a framework to have discussions that are not comfortable, that are difficult to have, but they absolutely have to be had. Have the 3-2-1 work method to work out problems before you give them the solution, and give autonomy to your team, and really treat your team like they are your family, and just watch your clinic absolutely explode in the most positive manner. If there's anything else that you need help with and you're kind of serious about taking your business to the next level, you can invest in coaching, you can invest in masterminds. It doesn't have to be with mine. You don't have to work with me. If you choose to, or you want to find out more about how we work, obviously there will be somewhere in the description a link for a free training video for you to see how we help clinics. But otherwise, thank you for watching, guys. Hope you found this valuable. If you've not subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button. Share this video with someone who might find it helpful, and we'll see you